Well, folks, we're finally here to this week that I thought we'd never get here. And there's still a certain amount of work to be done. So this week, on the 23rd, I'm recording this on the 21st, Monday. On the 23rd, seriously, on the 23rd, the Sun squares Pluto. On the 24th, more importantly, Venus conjuncts Saturn. On the 26th, most importantly, well, as important as Venus conjuncting Saturn is Mars opposing Pluto. And then we can declare the festivities closed. We can declare the eclipse portal and the retrogrades and, I mean, Venus is still going over her shadow degrees as is Mercury, but then on the 27th, which is a Sunday, we have the Taurus new moon. And it's a new moon where the ruling planet Venus is direct and Mercury is now direct. And what is so lovely is that the two intense transits this week, Venus conjuncting Saturn and Mars conjuncting Pluto, both occur before the new moon. So there's an energy of closure. I was just like, shall I title this particular weekly overview culmination again? Just like how many astrology weekly overviews will I title culmination? But the bottom line is there is a cycle, there's an intensity that is coming to a close this week. And all the intense transits are done by the end of this week. And then we have the Taurus new moon that will help us move forward. And one of the aspects that's encoded into the Taurus new moon is Venus conjuncting Neptune in Aries. And the Aries part of the chart, of course, is focused on what it is that we're trying to move to and what it is that we're trying to build. And Venus comes into Aries for all of May and the first week of June. And Mercury is currently in Aries for a couple of weeks. Even though the month of Taurus will start and the month of Aries will end on the 27th, the new moon solar eclipse in Aries exercises its influence all the way till the end of the first week of May, at least, according to me. Some people might say it extends its energy all the way to the end of the first week of October. We have a Mercury cycle in Aries that's underway till the end of July. So there's plenty to keep, as we've been discussing all along, the future state that we're trying to create is related to the houses in our chart occupied by Aries, Taurus, where the new moon will occur, and Gemini, where a month after the new moon, the next new moon will occur, and where we currently are hosting Jupiter till the end of the first week of June. So actually, what we can probably title the video for this week is Clearance. We are clearing, and the energy that we're clearing largely, you guessed it, is whatever it is that we feel we need to do to stabilize the Pisces part of the chart. Now, we're not going to be able to go the whole way. We've been discussing how Saturn and Neptune come back into Pisces, most importantly, Saturn from September the 1st of this year to February the 26th, I think, of next year. Do I have that right? Maybe I don't. Let me get you that date. But yeah, hold on. Hold your horses, everybody. Hold your horses. Excuse me. August 31st, September 1st to February 13th, not 26th, February 13th of 2026. And that's really when we will feel like we're putting the finishing touches on this stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart. But there's a certain phase that we needed to get to minimize the energy leaks. And my hope and prayer for every single one of us is that by the time we get to the 24th, which is 3 days from now, and do make that a deadline for yourself if you can, even sooner. Try and get wrapped up with stuff as much as you can by tomorrow, by day after, try and get done with as much as you can. So that in the Pisces part of the chart, you feel like anything that is an energy leak has been sorted out for now. And you may well leave that part of the chart knowing that there's more to follow, and there will be more to follow at the end of this year and the beginning of next year. Saturn continues to be in Pisces, till I think it's about May 20th or so. So you still have Saturn there. You might be hearing and be acting on matters related to the Pisces part of the chart for another month or so, which is fine. But what we have been trying to do is get a handle on past energies that have been holding us back from being able to move forward. And so my hope is that by the time you get to the Taurus new moon, before the Taurus new moon, that a lot of this stuff is done, sorted, behind you, energy stopped, and we'll then pick up the pieces based on everything that has been done. I don't necessarily know that I want to spend a lot of time talking about the Sun square Pluto. The Sun squared Mars yesterday on the 20th, and the Sun squares Pluto on the 23rd. And the fact that he's squaring Mars and Pluto from Taurus is not necessarily all that surprising, because Mars and Pluto are getting ready to oppose each other on the 26th. So the Sun is in Taurus. It could be the Sun is the faster moving planet, and I would just say whatever this opposition means to you, the Mars-Pluto opposition. And as I've said to you, the Mars-Pluto opposition for me goes back to Jan 20th to Feb 20th, when Pluto entered Aquarius and kind of kicked the door open there and gave us a sense of what he was going to start doing to transform the Aquarius part of the chart for us. And of course, this transformation continues till 2042. But Mars and Pluto conjuncted on February the 14th. And we're getting to a place where after that conjunction, a year after that conjunction, and I know it isn't exactly a year, but we've had 2 Mars-Pluto oppositions already, and this is the 3rd Mars-Pluto opposition that we're moving towards. And Mars is retrograde, the entire retrograde period. And Mars spent 6 months practically between 2 signs, going over 15 degrees or so, 3 times, culminates in this Mars-Pluto opposition. And so, much like a new moon, when 2 planets conjunct, they start something. And then when there's an opposition, something comes to a kind of a peak or a culmination or an intensification of energy. And then, of course, Mars is going to, in about a year's time, conjunct Pluto again. And Mars-Pluto conjunctions, of course, are volatile. It's a strange energy, because we're now, with every passing day this week, the moon is going to get darker and darker and darker and darker and darker, and we're going to lose energy. We're going to lose emotional steam. We're going to lose energy. We're going to lose. We're going to become more and more depleted, and indeed, by the time you get to Friday and Saturday, the moon will be dark, and so expect to feel depleted and depressed and hopeless and tired and napping a lot, sleeping a lot, and all those things, releasing the last month, being done with this last month of Aries, which in many ways was still a month of Pisces, given how many planets we were hosting in Pisces and how intense all those conjunctions were between, Mercury conjuncting the North Node when it was retrograde and then going direct, and Venus conjuncting Saturn and the North Node before it went direct, and then the North Node and Saturn on the 24th, and then moves direct and is getting ready to move out of Aries next week, and out of Pisces and into Aries next week, something we will all welcome. It's nice to have Venus direct. It's nice to have Venus direct in Pisces. She's trying to help get things done. It's just too bad that she runs right into Saturn. But we'll talk about that in a second. But with this Mars-Pluto opposition, the Mars-Pluto oppositions are always, it's hard to, they have a, Mars-Pluto conjunctions and squares and oppositions can have a violence to them. These are two combustible planets. Pluto is a slow burn, no question, but it's a burn all the same. And Mars is full of fire. So the faster moving planet, Mars, will need to serve Pluto transforming the Aquarius part of the chart. But as I mentioned to you before, when Pluto is in the first few degrees of a house that it is transforming over decades, it is in the act of removing and loosening bonds and ties. So there could be something as we head towards, from the Leo part of the chart, you may need to take action to pursue goals, take care of tasks, set boundaries, assert yourself in the pursuit of goals and the setting of boundaries in such a way that it serves Pluto's transformation. And because of the energies involved, it could be a situation that requires boundary setting, that may require departure, that may require for you to address something, that may require you to draw a line. It could be a relatively combustible situation. Now, as I always say in general, assertive, not aggressive. We're not promoting, especially with these energies at play, be careful of things becoming a little too volatile or a little too violent, and stay on the right side of things so that you can move forward with your life peacefully. But transformation and Plutonian transformation and Mars energy are very, well, Mars certainly is very yang, very masculine. So watch out for that. And some of these energies have been in play since last week. So something as this week goes on may come to, and there's some sort of a connection. You may want to think about whatever it is that's happening and how the sun is basically saying through its squares to Mars and Pluto as they get ready to oppose each other, the sun is saying, don't forget where your future lies. And it lies in the Aries, Taurus, and Gemini parts of the chart. So remember to keep your attention and focus and your shine there. Wherever the sun goes, that part of the chart is spotlit. So the Taurus part of the chart is spotlit. And I will be doing, the next video I'm going to do after this is the new moon in Taurus video in a couple of days' time. And I'll be doing it earlier than normal because I want to get the rising sign videos done in the membership part of the channel for the Taurus new moon. So I'll talk about the sun coming into Taurus. But wherever the sun goes, he brings his solar energy to. It's entirely spotlit, and we are intuitively taking stock where we at against where we want to be. Every nook and cranny is revealed. And with these squares, it's almost as if part of the solution, it's almost as if the sun is saying, don't lose sight of what needs to happen in the Taurus part of the chart as you gear up for some kind of battle related to the Plutonian transformation of the Aquarius part of the chart. And it could be that there's seemingly no connection. It's just as simple as, if you're in the energy of loosening past ties, and that is what Pluto is trying to get you to do, then just remember that it's a past energy. And remember that as you're dealing with it, where it is your future energy is beckoning. Uranus is still in the Taurus part of the chart this year, part of next year, part of this year, part of next year, and is trying to get you to align with the path of the Taurus part of the chart that is right and specific for you. It doesn't have to be conventional. It's your breadcrumbs. It's your path. It's who you are truly with integrity towards yourself, your own specific quirky self in your own specific quirky magical way in the Taurus part of your chart. That feels right, that feels authentically you. Undeniably you. So the Sun squares Pluto, and the Sun squaring Pluto and Mars before the Mars-Pluto opposition may well be also a kind of a harbinger, a kind of it's a little bit like, if you know which house is occupied by Leo in your chart and what house is occupied by Aquarius in your chart, and that's where the Mars-Pluto opposition is taking place. As the Sun systematically, yesterday squares Mars, moves towards squaring Pluto in a couple of days, it could also be that somewhere internally you're observing the Taurus part of the chart, and there's some sort of action that Mars needs to take in the Leo part of the chart that is going to come as a result of your evaluating whatever you're evaluating in the Taurus part of the chart. And there's something about the Plutonian transformation, the Aquarius part of the chart, that is also dependent on your evaluating what you're evaluating in the Taurus part of the chart. The faster moving planet, in this case the Sun, has to take some action to dislodge himself from the square. And so it could very well be that Mars and Pluto are both waiting on you in a certain sense to do a preliminary assessment of how things are going and where you want them to be and how you want things to align and what you want to take on. And, you know, the new moon is on the 27th. So the Sun being there for about a week before the new moon occurs in the Taurus part of your chart is a time of mulling over. And because the moon is dark, it's a great time to mull over. All right, now that I'm taking care of and getting done with some of these tasks related to stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart, what do I want to do to revitalize the Taurus part of my chart? And as you are taking stock of this, it helps Mars move forward in Leo in a way that's aligned to you, and helps Pluto move forward in a way that's aligned to you in the Aquarius part of your chart. Now, the Mars-Pluto opposition on the 26th, we've already covered, can be volatile, a power struggle. Mars has to serve Pluto. And so there's something in the Aquarius part of the chart. You can go back to Jan 20th to Feb 20th of last year, February 14th of last year, as you were heading to that date, and see what was loosened for you. What did Pluto do to kick the door open in the Aquarius part of the chart to say, I'm going to start transforming this part of the chart till 2042, and here's a head start. Here's what we're going to, in order for the things, for the tectonic plates to shift, I've got to start loosening them. I've got to start loosening some of these bonds. We've got to start untying some of these knots, some of these connections, some of these cords that are holding the past energy in place so tightly so that things can move around and get ready to be transformed. And so Mars-Pluto opposition could very well be action being taken to help Pluto continue to loosen these bonds. As I said, there are 2 steps that need to be done this week before you can really embrace this Taurus new moon energy. And one is the Mars-Pluto opposition. The other, on the 24th, is Venus conjuncting Saturn in the Pisces part of your chart. There's still a suggestion that there's a few straggling. At this point in time, your to-do list in the Pisces part of the chart should seem even more finite. It's not going to seem unproblematic. It's not because we're not resolving everything. We're just trying to take the actions as far as we can for now. Venus conjuncting Saturn can make it feel like the consequences of us stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart can feel a little bit severe or punishy. Now, okay, I'm realizing, let me do, because I mentioned the Taurus new moon, etc., let me do sort of the business homework part of things before it gets too late. There are 3 ways to engage with me as an astrologer. You can watch the free content that I post on this website. You can watch the sign-specific content I post in the members-only part of the channel. Our membership's at $6.99 a month, and I post the videos I make for different signs, and they're intended to be for your rising sign. It's perfectly fine if you want to watch them for your sun and moon sign as well. I'm shifting my position on that a little bit, not because I'm trying to get more views, but because I can see why people do that. I see, but it's really predominantly for your rising sign. And I'm in the process right now of uploading videos related to Neptune moving into Aries. In a couple of days, I'm going to do the new moon in Taurus video in the free part of the chart, and then I'm going to start doing sign-specific, rising sign-specific videos for the new moon in Taurus. And of course, the third way to engage with me, my email address is in the description box below, as is information about memberships. And you can email me there if you are interested in an astrology reading. There is a special I'm offering till the end of April for $100, 60 to 75 minutes, going over the 2 retrogrades we've just had and the 2 eclipses we've just had, and how those connect to your birth chart. All right, homework done. In the Pisces part of the chart, we've talked about how you could be concretizing, putting structure around, going for, making things happen related to Neptunian ambitions in the house occupied by Pisces in your chart. Creative, artistic, musical, inspired, connected to the muses and the inspiration kind of creativity, monasticism, renunciation, spirituality, spiritual goals that promote reflection and contemplating cause and effect, and contemplating detachment and erasure of the egoic self, a connection with source. Piscean goals can also involve service and philanthropy of a compassionate kind, therapy, healing the collective, erasing hierarchy, helping people understand how we are all connected and how we are all part of the same energy and the same source. So when it comes to those kinds of ambitions, there's the potential in the part of the chart occupied by Pisces in the house occupied by Pisces in your chart to concretize those ambitions. And for something like that, Venus conjunct Saturn can provide a certain kind of closure, or can provide a certain amount of structure. We've also talked about how, most importantly in the Pisces part of the chart, whether you're structuring things or whether you are setting boundaries related to loss or theft or deception or gaslighting, whether it's you playing your cards close to the chest, whether it's others playing their cards close to the chest, underneath it all, there's a need with Saturn in the Pisces part of the chart to show up in a responsible and a disciplined way, and to structure things and to take care of things and to minimize energy leaks and losses. And if you have been unable to progressively since 2012 get a handle on matters related to the Pisces part of the chart, Saturn's entry since March 23 has progressively been allowing you to, wanting you to, encouraging you to, assisting you with, but also putting pressure on you to stabilize the Pisces part of the chart and minimize the energy leaks, and also take care of pending items that could spill over and become massively problematic. And I wouldn't be surprised if in February, but especially March and April, that's where the action has been. There's still a few more days to tie up all these loose ends. Venus conjuncting Saturn can just feel a little bit like, it's a little bit like Saturn giving us a bit of a shake on the way out, as if to say, we're not done and you can't take your eye off the ball, and I'm going to be back. I'm still here for another month, and I'm going to be back between September and Feb, and there's more to clean up. Good job if you've been able to take care of things and get things done, but also with Saturn, there can be a slight sense of understanding the consequences of things. It's a little bit like Saturn saying, you can never go back to that place again now. When Saturn transits a certain part of your chart and a certain house, he does it in such a way as if to say, I'm going to spend 2.5 years here, and after that, you can never take your eye off the ball. It's like you got to keep showing up. And if you don't show up, this can be the consequence. And with Venus conjuncting Saturn, this is why in last week's weekly review, I was like, finish it, finish it, finish it, finish it. Because Venus conjuncting Saturn can have a slight feeling of, can have a slight element of judgment or consequence and even resolution. And there are other positive connotations as well. I mean, these can be agreements. These can be long-term solutions for finances and relationships. But with conjuncting Saturn, there's an element of a test. There's lessons being learned. It's a little bit like preparing for finals in a subject that we've been neglecting for a long time. So we've done our best, but we're not going to be able to get an A+. We may get a B or a B+, which would be amazing considering how much things had gotten loosey-goosey in the Pisces part of the chart, particularly reaching those crisis years of 2014, 15, and 16, 17 especially. But there might be a sense of, all right, I'm going to give you a B+, but here's also something that you're going to have to live with as a consequence of it, and this still needs a certain amount of attention. It's fine. There's no substitute for minimizing energy leaks and removing a certain type of nagging stress. And that is what you've been asked to do in the Pisces part of the chart. There's no substitute for concretizing ambitions and getting things done in the Pisces part of the chart. You have something to show for it now. That's what Saturn wants. And with Venus conjuncting Saturn, on the positive side, there could be a culmination that feels financial, relationship-based. Venus conjunct Saturn for some people could be a serious partnership, a serious marriage, a serious financial commitment. It can also be, for some people, an expense that feels a little bit like a lesson. Oh, had I only been on top of the Pisces part of the chart, I could have figured out a way to avoid this. Or, oh, there's a lesson here, there's a consequence here. Deep breath. But at least I'm done with what I need to be done with. And now I have to deal with facing up to this consequence. But more importantly, the consequence is also a warning to me of what I need to avoid like the plague in future and how I need to continue to show up. Now that I know what I know, and now that I've learned what I've learned, and now that I've embodied what I've embodied in cleaning up and stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart, I have to keep showing up with a certain energy here to keep things stable. So both Venus conjunct Saturn and Mars opposite Pluto are not easy aspects. There's a kind of a culmination energy, a closure and a culmination energy. I know that word. There's a kind. That's it. I mean, there's no other word to use. There's a culmination energy, and I would just say for the next week till Saturday, but especially over the next couple of days as you head towards the 24th, just one foot in front of the other, diligently keep doing what you need to be doing. Your energy is going to start to get depleted by the end of this week, and then we can have something to celebrate on Sunday when we have that Taurus new moon and we enter a much clearer time. If you haven't been able to show up to the Pisces part of the chart with a great deal of diligence, Venus conjunct Neptune, Venus conjunct Saturn, has to be said, can feel like some sort of a consequence. But the thing I still like about Venus conjunct Saturn is that a consequence is still a resolution, as opposed to things being, it still has an element of the shoelaces being tied, as opposed to them being loose and us walking around wearing shoes where the laces are not tied, and so we can just fall and injure ourselves. At least this way the shoelaces have been tied, and we may not love, it may be, in some cases with Venus conjunct Saturn, we're going to feel like, all right, the glass is half full, as opposed to completely empty. And in some cases, we're going to feel like, oh, the glass is half empty. But it isn't completely empty. In each case, that's going to be an element of a resolution and a recognition that a certain energy leak is now done. and that we have something to contend with and manage and make happen. You know, the next couple of days are going to be a little bit complicated. You may get news, you may get information that feels a little bit Saturnian. You may get news or information or find yourself engaging in a dynamic where you feel like you absolutely need to stand up for yourself that goes back a year and feels in line with what Pluto did to kick the door open when he entered Aquarius and how he's trying to transform the Aquarius part of your chart. So the best that we can do with this energy is put one foot in front of the other to finish up a cycle that has occupied us intensely through March and through April. I even think a little bit politically with these aspects, this might be, just watch for it being a slightly rocky week. But I mean, my God, no matter which side of the political equation you're on, how can we not look at March and April and not find them rocky? Operatic, you know. Now with whatever's going on with the Secretary of Defense, and you know, it's just like, yeah. One foot in front of the other. Let's try and tie up as much as we can. Get done with what we need to get done with. Submit what we need to submit. Close what we need to close. Celebrate culminations that feel positive. The completion of an artistic goal, Venus. The completion of a financial goal, Venus. The completion of a relationship analysis and relationship goal. Venus was retrograde from March the 1st till April the 12th. Reevaluating finances, reevaluating resources, reevaluating relationships, getting them in line with where you want to go and what you want to build now. If you're in startup mode and working out of your parents' garage, it makes no sense to pay a mortgage for a 3-bedroom house. And it makes no sense to give relationships that are somehow standing in the way of you pursuing whatever. Having that alignment and saying, no, for the time being, I'm doing this, I'm working out of here, and this is my budget, and rather than this gym membership and those classes and all these things that I could do when I was not behind my startup, I can do this, this, and this to substitute to take care of my wellness so that I'm not spending that, you know, those are that's very Venus retrograde. Is your lifestyle in line with where you're trying to go? And there are substitutes. There are substitutes. There are substitutes. So you do not have to make decisions to completely compromise on your health. You can work out. You can do things. It's lovely to be able to spend money as if, and if you have the money coming in, by all means do it. But with Venus retrograde, it's very much a, what do you value? And are your expenses and is your lifestyle in line with where you're trying to go? And the moment you start to think that way, it actually gives where you're trying to go even more energy and even more intention. And with Venus conjuncting Saturn, that could be commitments, that could be lessons, that could be outcomes. Some of these outcomes could even be positive, a culmination of something artistic, a culmination, as I said, you finish that first draft, you finish that third draft, you make some important decisions from a relationship perspective of who's in the boat and who's not in the boat, or if not entirely not in the boat, where it is that you're scaling down some of your involvement and your attention, how you're handling your finances, financial outcomes. Could be a mixed bag, but it's welcome. It's necessary. The biggest reason why it would be a mixed bag is because we were not on top of things progressively since 2012, and we are cleaning up our act. And so it's very hard to clean up our act perfectly and flawlessly if we're not attending to things every day. Or, you know, it's a little bit like letting your apartment or your house go for 3 months and then trying to clean it up and make it presentable in 2 days. and you will be able to, but it's going to be a very different outcome than if you were attending to it a little bit every day. Then it would be more thoroughly clean. Whereas in 2 days, you can do what you can do. So you still get that B or that B plus as opposed to an A plus, but there's still a, oh, okay, don't go into that bathroom and don't do this. You know, there's still something to contend with there. So also, just as a friendly reminder, with the new moon solar eclipses in Aries in March, April 23 and April 24, there's a direction that we've been trying to get to in the Aries part of the chart that we couldn't. Some of us, many of us, couldn't entirely get to it because of what we needed to release in the Libra part of the chart. And we have the final of these new moon solar eclipse Aries on March the 29th all the way to the end of the first week of June. And that, you know, some of what needs to be released may very well be tied to whatever it is that we're trying to do to stabilize the Pisces part of the chart. So now that this is done, it allows us, as Venus enters Aries and Mercury's in Aries, and they're both moving to conjunct Chiron down the line. And of course, Venus is moving to conjunct Neptune on May the 2nd. And the sun is now in Taurus, and we're going to have a new moon in Taurus, and Mercury is going to enter Taurus in about a couple of weeks, and Venus will enter Taurus at the end of the first week of June. And, you know, future, 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 future. You may, even if there could be things related to the full moons, particularly the full moon in Scorpio coming up, where it could be tied to, because Scorpio trines Pisces and Cancer, and that's where Mars was. It could be that as you head to the full moon in Scorpio, there's an understanding or a feeling of what it is that needs to be, other things that need to be released to allow you to move forward as well. And that's fine. That's fine. By the end of this week, ideally by the 24th, try and get done with what you need to do. Take care of past energy leak type of things that feel very pending. As you head to the Mars-Pluto opposition, there could be some sort of culmination, here's that word again, or showdown, or assertion necessary, or pursuing goals, or assisting Pluto in the transformation that he announced between January 20th and February 20th of last year. And all that energy that has been slowly snowballing since March, April 23, then since April 24, then since Thanksgiving of 24, especially gathering momentum with every week since then really since the end of February and March and April, that energy comes to an end by the 26th. And on the 27th, we have the new moon in Taurus. Now, we get to carry ourselves forward wherever we go, and it doesn't mean that everything past is over, that we want to be past. As I said, we continue to stabilize the Pisces part of the chart later this year, and Saturn's still in Pisces, and blah, 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 everything I said earlier. But another way of saying what I'm saying is try and clear as much of past energy this week so that you can really, after this Taurus new moon, lean into creating that future space. And there still may be transitions and transformations of past things that are needed in order to lean into that space. But at least you'll be focused on leaning into that space. You'll know that you're moving towards the future. And Venus conjunct Saturn is likely to leave you with a little bit of a rap on the knuckles as a warning to say, good job, March, April, for getting to this point, but don't forget, you know, what sort, don't, here's something to remind you that you still have obligations to attend to. And here's something to remind you, it's like a fee or a fine or a penalty to make sure that you understand that you can, a very Saturnian, never let things get this out of the hand again. And with Saturn, we're becoming wiser. We're becoming more responsible towards ourselves. We're becoming less emotionally reactive. We're becoming smarter. We're becoming more discerning around who to argue with and who not to argue with. What is our goal? What is the wisest response I can give this situation, as opposed to a reaction that is just going to give this situation so much energy that it's going to become bigger in my life than it needs to. That kind of stoic, non-reactive, mature, strategic, wise, contained, spiritual, honestly. Saturn is a very spiritual planet. Discipline. Way of thinking. And Saturn may well say, Venus, after conjuncting Saturn twice already, as part of her retrograde, is making this final conjunction and saying, all right, let's dot the I, cross the T related to this Venus retrograde. Doesn't have to happen for another 18 months or so. And here's the result of it. Some of you may be feeling very clear about what changes need to be made to spending and lifestyle and relationships, as I said, with Venus conjuncting Saturn. And some of you may feel like, all right, I resolved all this, but damn it, I've still got this to contend with, but at least the energy leak is done. So one foot in front of the other, let's close out past energies so we can be focused more on the future next week. And let's take stock of what Venus conjunct Saturn is giving us. And let's just be prepared this week to potentially be rocked. Because Venus conjunct Saturn something could come from the outside. Mars opposite Pluto, something could come from the outside that's just like, this isn't exactly what, but it's still never, I'm telling you, if you've been taking action to stabilize the Pisces part of the chart in March and April, the result is going to be so much better and so much more manageable than if you have not been. Okay. If you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, feel free to do so. The next video I'm going to do is on the new moon in Taurus in a couple of days. There's a bell icon next to the subscribe button. When you subscribe, it gives you this wiggly bell option on top. Click on that. You'll be notified whenever I do a new video. You can contribute to the channel by using the thanks button underneath this video or by donating to the channel. Information is in the description box. The sun is already set. I'm losing light. You can contribute to the channel for free by liking this video or by commenting on it or by comment. Thank you to everyone who comments. Likes and comments increase circulation on YouTube. And feel free to tell your friends or share this material with someone who might find it useful. Information on readings, memberships is in the description box below. Why do I feel like I'm missing something? But it doesn't matter. You hear me say this last part all the time. All right, folks, one more week, and then we get to look forward to that Taurus new moon. So let's do what it takes. Okay, take care.